Recording in progress.
Hello and welcome to Energy Freedom, the talk show organized by the Energy Club, which brings together the best available specialists in the fields of energy supplies, and related issues. Today we are starting the series of talk shows under the heading New Realities of the European Gas Market, Overcoming Dependency. And what a gamut of talent and expertise we have here in the persons of our participants. The show is being broadcast on different channels owned by the Energy Club in different social networks. It will also be available as a recorded program later on the site of the Energy Club, iClub.energy. And in order to make our discussion more structured, we are setting the time limit for one single interference as 7 minutes. You'll see the timer on your screens. Of course, if there's a need to ask a question, to make a remark later, to maybe extrapolate on something that you had no opportunity to mention in the major introduction, then you will be given additional time, and you may ask questions of each other, of course. Probably there will be questions from the audience as well. We'll see. I am delighted to offer the floor, first of all, to Maciej Wozniak, who's the senior expert under the High-Level Advisors Mission in Moldova, funded by the EU, and Deputy COO of PGNG in 2016-2020.
Hello, it's my pleasure and honor to be here today on invitation of Energy Club. Thank you for the invitation, and so I would like to present my perspective as a previously manager of the biggest oil and gas company in Poland, now advisor of European Commission to Moldova, and especially to the state-controlled company in Moldova, which name is Energocom. Having in mind that countries like Moldova and Ukraine are together applying for the European membership, European Commission, European Union membership, having in mind that those countries are very intensively interconnected in terms of electricity and gas, paths of both those countries during next years will be very interdependent towards the European membership, but also towards the energy independence, energy security. During last 2 years, we've introduced and developed completely new ways of introducing gas supplies to the market of Moldova and partially also to the market of Ukraine. Energocom, Moldovan state-controlled company, last year in December 2022, for the first time started to import gas from the southern direction for the first time in history. And since December 2022, all supplies to the right bank Moldova, this democratic part of Moldova, are coming from different directions than Russian direction. Only Transnistria region, separatistic region, is supplied still by Russian gas by Gazprom. We've done it because we opened the route through the Trans-Balkan pipeline, through Romania, from Bulgaria, from Greece. That was thanks to the Trans-Balkan pipeline being already there, not used, and thanks to opening the interconnection Greece-Bulgaria, ICGB, in October 2022. So Energocom was the first company in history which used the Trans-Balkan pipeline to flow gas to the opposite direction that it was invented or designed during the Soviet time. Thanks to this pipeline, and this is a clue of what I would like to express right now, not taking even the whole time. But having this pipeline already operational, we proved it's operational. We proved it's huge enough to be able to bring a lot of gas to the Central Europe. I think we are, together with our Ukrainian friends from the TSO in Ukraine, we are aware that all those countries which are still importing Russian gas through Ukraine from Russia might also bring the same amounts of gas also through Ukraine, but starting from the south part of Europe. This gas, which is coming from the direction of south through Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, then Ukraine might go the same route to through the same route to the Austria, Serbia, Hungary, Slovakia, but this gas might comes from the southern direction, which means from LNG terminals in Greece, from LNG terminals in Turkey, from flows of gas which are coming to Greece or Turkey from the Caspian region. So there are multiplied possibilities of bringing new supplies of gas to the same clients which are now using gas going through Ukraine. Moreover, for Ukraine, for Moldova, it means that the transportation fees will stay there. They will not be replaced. There will not be financial issues when the transit agreement for Ukraine will be finished by the end of this year. So those incomes will be still there. Maybe Moldova will earn a little bit more than previously. And the most important thing, this route is already there. This route is ready to use. This route do not need any investment. I mean, minor spending should be probably spent for the increase of capacity of the pressure, maybe in Bulgaria, maybe something in Romania, but generally it is already there, ready to use, not influenced by any, for example, Russian forces or Russian allies. So that is my main theme, and I'm inviting you to ask questions how we did it. But as I said, we from Moldova and we as European Union advisors, we are proposing the new concept of bringing gas to Central Europe through Ukraine, keeping the incomes of transit countries, and being independent from Russian flows, Russian gas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wozniak. Your experience is very valuable, especially because you combine the experience of European Union with knowledge and being in the country's neighbor in the European Union. So you can really see it from both ends, or should I say both beginnings of this route. And I don't know whether you have noticed this, but one of the participants even showed a thumb up to your speech, and I believe that he will later explain why he reacted so. Meanwhile, we have with us Ora Sabadas. She's a senior energy journalist at ICIS, and we're eager to hear your point of view.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Energy Club for inviting me. And I do apologize if you hear any background noises because I work from the office these days, so people are behind me, but I will speak loudly enough for you to hear. I'm grateful for Mr. Wozniak's comments. I do have actually some details to offer to complement what he said. But before I go into the Trans-Balkan line and the supplies that come from the south, I would like to say that we now see two pictures emerging after 2022. One is Western Europe, of course, which has been able to diversify away. We see Norwegian gas being ramped up, being at record levels. Many new terminals being built or expanded, and new sources of gas coming from particularly from the US, but also Qatar and African producers, etc. We have also seen a lot of Russian LNG coming in. We know that Belgium, France, and Spain have been taking quite a lot of LNG. About 50% of the Russian LNG sold worldwide has arrived actually in Europe last year. But overall, in the bigger picture, so overall in the larger volumes that have come into Europe, the Russian LNG was not that much, was not that significant. Pipeline-wise, of course, the gas has dropped significantly. It's now around 8% of the total imports. So that's the Western picture. Moving to Eastern Europe, the situation from my point of view is slightly more concerning. Why? Well, because in 2022, we were all told that Bulgaria was not taking any more Russian gas, that the alternatives were coming from Greece. Turkey was also lining up and preparing to bring in more gas. What we see actually in reality, and of course, this is more difficult to prove, but data that are available via ENSO can actually show what is happening right now, is that some of the Greek companies that have long-term supply contracts with Russia are actually selling this gas in Bulgaria, and it's netted out on the border. And what we are already seeing is that Turkey has actually ramped up supplies of Russian imports. It has imported a lot of gas. If you check the regulated data, the Turkish regulated data from September onwards, you will see that it has actually doubled the volumes of gas imported from Russia. It's true that there is also an increase in Azeri gas coming in, but this gas is actually not staying in Turkey. It's moving on to Bulgaria. And the result is that, of course, prices in Bulgaria are now very cheap, and it's having a knock-on impact on the whole region. Hungary, for example, is now trading at 5-6 euros a discount to Slovakia, to Poland. And interestingly, there is also gas potentially of Russian origin ending up in Poland as we speak, transiting from Hungary into Poland, going into Slovakia as well. So that's one of the bigger concerns that we see right now. Of course, this Turkish deal is welcome. Turkey is very welcome to come in and open up its borders. In fact, I was one of the first cheerleaders to suggest that Turkey should actually open the borders. But unfortunately, we have absolutely no visibility in terms of what comes in through the Turkish borders from the various suppliers and then going out. And we also see many companies springing up like mushrooms in the region. One company, for example, registered in Moldova, having just one person there, succeeded to make a profit of 260% with absolutely no assets, so no asset base, but just importing gas from Turkey and selling it regionally within just 1 year. And that was for 2022. Let's see what will happen in 2023. I'll be very interested to see how one person manages to make such enormous profit within the space of a year. Now, going forward, of course, there are a couple of big unknowns. Number one is the fact that there is the future of the Russian transit is imbalanced. We don't know what will happen. We don't know. Officially, the Ukrainian stakeholders are saying, no, we're not going to renew the transit contract. But of course, even if that is actually shifted, this responsibility is shifted to somebody else, OMV, SPP, or any other buyer in the region right now, the question is, will these buyers actually assume the risk? Secondly, also, let's not forget that ultimately, even if the TSO and Naftogaz do not want to renew this contract, they will still have to negotiate the technical details of this contract. So ultimately, they will still have to sit at the table with Gazprom and negotiate. The other big unknown is, of course, the future of the European Commission, because we have elections coming up. Right now, they say 2027 phase-out date for Russia, for Russian gas, but there is a very strong likelihood that this new commission will be a far-right commission. And we know that the far-right parties are very much connected to the Kremlin. So will that deadline still hold for 2027? We don't know. And then finally, in very short term, this is the impact of the German neutrality charge. Germany now charges an additional fee for gas exported from its market to all other member states. But while Western Europeans are not that impacted because they have supplies and they have choice, Eastern Europeans are actually impacted, and it's getting more and more expensive to get the gas from the west to the east. So this is a big problem. There are many things that need to concern, particularly us in Eastern Europe. This German fees is going to impact the storage, the Ukrainian storage business, because if it's very expensive to bring it in, then nobody will bring the gas into Ukraine. So going forward, everybody needs to think about these things. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a very, very difficult year ahead. Thank you very much.
I have always admired people who can paint pictures with words, and this is what Ms. Sabadas has just done. And by the way, I didn't hear any background noise because listening to you was taken, I would say, if not 100, then probably 110% of my attention. Okay, now we go to a Ukrainian participant. And I give the floor to Maxim Nemchinov, the Vice President of the Energy Club.
Good day, dear colleagues. I'm sorry, my English is not very good for quality discussion, but I will try to speak without mistake. I'm sorry. So, in 2022, the European Union faced on the biggest challenges since its inception, namely the war in Ukraine, which has caused a global energy crisis over the past 10 years. Russia has used the EU countries exercise dependent on its energy resources as a weapon with an intention of disruption the supply of natural gas, oil, and petroleum products to Europe, and thus damaging the economies of all EU member states and maintaining influences over EU political decision. In order to prevent the deterioration of the situation on the gas market during 2022-2023, the EU took measures to save energy, diversify energy supplies, and accelerate the transition to clean. So what are the main EU measures that have been taken? First, a reduction of natural gas consumption. During 2022-2023, consumption in the EU decreased by almost 100 billion cubic meter. In 2022, it decreased by 15% or 56.9 billion cubic meter. In 2023, maybe 35.5 billion cubic meter, or 11% less than in 2022, and 92.4 billion cubic meter, or 22.5 less than in 2021. In terms of consumption, Germany 12.5 billion cubic meter, Italy 6.8 billion cubic meter, and France 4.5 billion cubic meter were reduced the most. Second, decrease in the volume in imports of pipeline gas from Russia Federation and its replacement. At its peak in 2018-2019, the annual volume of gas imports from Russia amounted to 118 billion cubic meter. Then in 2023, the volume of imports amounted to 28.3 billion cubic meter, which is 35.5 billion cubic meter of 55.6% less than in 2022 and 111.7 billion cubic meter or 79.8% less than in 2021. The other day, European Commissioner for Energy, Kadri Simpson, said that Europe is not interested in extending the contract with Gazprom and about the availability of alternative supply option. Third, diversification of sources and routes of gas supply. At the end of March 2022, the EU and USA adopted a joint declaration of increasing LNG trade. In 2023, the USA became the world's largest LNG exporter, and the European Union's LNG import capacity increased by 40 billion cubic meter, and another 30 billion cubic meter is expected to be commissioned in 2024. Qatar has also significantly increased LNG supplies. And four, filling underground gas storage facilities by 19-100%. In June 2022, the EU adopted a regulation that provides for filling UGS facilities to the maximum. On the eve of the winter of 2022-2023, EU UGS facilities were 95% full, maybe, and 2023-2024 by 100%. I see. I don't have time. More time.
Well, depends
Thank
on
you.
how much you want to say. Okay. I
Maybe
think that
later. Thank you.
I think that Mr. Nemchinov has provided us with a rather detailed review of both the state of things and the opportunities that arise from this state of things. And now we go to the most active so far participant of this discussion, Mr. Andriy Mezovets, who is the president of the Association Gas Traders of Ukraine.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you
yeah.
for nice. Thank you for organizers for the opportunity to speak. And I'm going to add some to the previous speakers and refresh our memory for about the events of 2022. As we all know, Europe faced with price volatility in 2022, reduced supplies from Russia led to significant increase in gas prices in Europe wholesale markets. Price skyrocketed in March 2022, reaching records high due to reduced Russian supply and panic buying. But on the other hand, the price hike didn't achieve the goal set by the Russians, because while in the winter season 2022-2023, prices were significantly higher than the average of previous periods. Since the summer of 2023, they have been almost the same as the average for the last decade. Paradoxically, China indirectly helped Europe, as a fact. Slower demand there and price premiums here made it much more profitable for the tankers to sell gas, not in China, but in Europe. That's the fact. The risk of gas shortages, the situation was resolved too. A striking example was of overcoming the deficit was Germany, which on the one hand significantly reduced gas consumption and on the other hand built LNG terminals. It should be noted that this country previously completely rejected this possibility. Impact on the geopolitical situation. Restriction of gas supplies from Russia has escalated geopolitical tensions in Europe. Russia still used gas as a tool of political pressure. It had reached the point where some countries are even now almost 100% supplied with Russian gas. And this is a serious challenge in Europe because this could lead to destabilization of the region. As an alternatives of Russian supplies, LNG, other roads, other pipelines, renewables, accelerated focus on renewables energy sources like wind, solar. It's much more profitable in long-term sustainability. But in my opinion, the main goal should be regional cooperation because increased regional cooperation between European countries in the areas of infrastructure development, storages can ensure market stability and security. And last but not least, transit of Russian gas after 2024. I'm sure that this issue shouldn't even be raised until the war is over. With all due respect to our European partners, Ukraine is now fighting for survival. And any contacts with the aggressor in this direction will harm us. So it's not even about money. So you guess how Russia can use this fact of our negotiations in their propaganda. So as alternative for the countries like Slovakia, Hungary, or even Austria, we can offer our gas storages for these countries to solve their problems. So that's maybe all the points I wanted to make to the audience. So thank you for your attention, and I'm ready for the questions.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your observations and ideas with us. And I think, understand why you showed the sign of appreciation to what Mr. Wozniak was saying, because regional cooperation is certainly something that is instrumental. All right, and now we're going to a analyst from one of the prominent Ukrainian think tanks, which is called the Center for Global Studies Strategy 21 or Strategy 21st, because there are Roman symbols. Oksana
21.
Ishuk, 21, okay.
20, yes.
Oksana Ishuk, she's the executive director of this think tank.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to take part in such a discussion. To begin with, I'd like to highlight some perspective that we had in 2021 and what we have now. Speaking about Russia, it was
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Speaking about Russia, it was the largest supplier in the EU before the full-scale innovation. In 2021, the share of the Russian gas in the EU was approximately 48%. And if to say about the third quarter of 2023, its share diminished to 16%. It became the fourth in the third quarter of 2023. It became the fourth supplier of gas to the EU in gaseous state after the Norway, which is at the first place with the share of 48%, after the Algeria, and if to say about the LNG, at the first place is United States of America with also 48%, because if to say about pipeline gas, there is the first place for Norway, and if to say about LNG, the first place is for US. The second place is Qatar with 14%. It is the official data from the Eurostat, and the third place is Algeria with 10%. The main thing that we should understand is that Russia is no more leading export in a country. At the first place of the world export is US now. And they became the first exporter in the world with the capacities of 124 BCM. And they replaced Qatar and Australia. And the second larger exporter in the world is Norway. And speaking about Russia, what we could say, of course, we cannot make any prognosis forecast, because we have not the availability of the official data. We could not trust to data which is offered by the Russian officials. But what we see now, it is the latest remarks of Deputy Prime Minister Novak, who said that the general total export of Russian gas in 2023 was 99.6 BCM. What it means? It means that Russia is now rolled back to the volumes which it exported in the late Soviet period in the mid-80s. What is about the security in Europe? We think that the crisis period of energy crisis of 2022 was overcome successfully by Europe. And if we managed to overcome that crisis, then in future there will be no possibilities for Russia to augment its volumes on European market. Why? Because in the perspective of 2025, the Qatar should augment its volumes of LNG. You know that now not pipeline gas, but LNG is a game changer, and now we have large supplier in the face of US, and in the perspective of 2025 there will be Qatar with new volumes of on stream. Now the volumes of export of Qatar is 104 BCM, and in the perspective of 2025 they plan to make functional 7 new LNG capacities, and the volumes of export should be at 168 BCM per year. So the main question is whether Russia will have possibility to overcome the sanctions regime concerning LNG, because you know that in their energy strategy, they decided to augment the export of LNG from the modern 8% of LNG of total energy supply in the world to 20% with the Arctic LNG, but it was launched and there was no supplies from it, and the main question will be whether the sanctions will help to stop these projects of Russian LNG, which should be on stream till 2026. Here I mean the third and the second and third lines of Arctic LNG 2. So what we are seeing now that the perspective of Europe is very well. In 2022, it was the first year when the renewables was at the first stage in generating the electricity. For renewables, it was 39% in generating electricity in the EU. It was the first year when the renewables replaced the natural gas. So the dynamics is very well, and if everything will be like now, the volumes of Russian gas will be only diminishing in European consumption. So we hope it will be here.
Thank you very much.
for
Thank you very
attention.
much, especially for finishing on such an upbeat note about the hopes. And may I say that this was a real strategic outlook at of the issue. Now we go to some matters legal, I presume, because our next speaker is Inna Antipova. She is a senior legal counsel of ENGIE.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here, and thank you for inviting me. Happy to speak, and thank you for being in such a great company with such interesting topics and discussions. So from my side, I will not speak about legal matters because legal matters are usually quite boring ones. So I think it's better to discuss a bit the general European policy, which is currently the energy policy in Europe and in the European Union. And first, I would like very quickly just to remember the main measures that were taken by the European Union, by the European Commission, after the Russian attack on Ukraine and after the war in Ukraine started. Because what we actually could see is that EU adopted a wide variety of measures, and these were not only the measures of short term, but also long term. And so they, even if they were adopted in 2022, they still affect the current policy and they still affect the current situation at the energy markets. So as mentioned by other speakers, of course, there were demand reductions, and actually we should say that Europe did in this regard, Europe did quite well. So the goal of demand reductions that was adopted in August 22 was, if I'm not mistaken, 15%. But in reality, we see that the demand was reduced by 17%. And of course, that's kind of a medal which has two sides. So but it resulted in the fact that Europe doesn't suffer the absence of Russian pipeline gas because it was replaced. Europe also adopted stockpiling obligations. This was adopted also in 2022, but it still affects the current situation at the market because according to this legislation, the storage obligations of the different European countries are that by November the level of storage should be at least 80%. This is a very high level, and we see already that this policy it is actually quite effective because in November 23 the level of storage was a record, and it was a record high, and we expect that these obligations will be continued for the next years, and this will also shape the European energy policy in the region. The next, so to say, group of measures that were taken by EU is again, like it was mentioned, the building the we could say a very operative commencement of LNG supplies of new routes of LNG gas, and when everybody expected LNG capacities to be built within years, in reality it was built within months, and that was a huge success that helped a lot European to go through the winter months and to reshape its energy policy. We could say that Germany, Finland, Estonia, so they did extremely well in this regard. And also we should mention Norway and Norwegian pipeline gas, which was also one of the sources that helped to substitute the Russian gas. And last but not least is that Europe adopted the policy of joint gas purchases by creating aggregate EU platform. The success of this platform and the success of this measure is sometimes called limited, but this was only the beginning. So we expect that actually this mechanism of joint gas purchases will develop, and of course learning by doing, learning by experience and doing some mistake, but this will continue. And we also see that the range of contracts that could be discussed or could be negotiated at this platform is extending. And finally, and this is one of the most important, I think, aspects of the EU energy policy, is that it is, so to say, transformative measures, because the idea of the energy policy is now to transform completely by transforming the whole energy system, decarbonization, and hydrogen. And there is a lot of things to do. This is true, and especially in such complicated geopolitical situation as we have right now in Europe, because the election calendar, so to say, is very busy. The situation with the conflicts in Ukraine and with the war in Ukraine, conflicts in the Middle East, and it doesn't improve the situation a lot. And we should say that hydrogen and was the goals with respect to hydrogen have not been achieved by EU, and that's this poses huge challenges for the next year, which will be quite tight. But we see also a number of legislative acts adopted by the European Commission, by the European Parliament. For example, Net Zero Industry Act, which should improve the situation with the decarbonization decarbonization and clean energy. Also establishment of the European Hydrogen Bank, which should provide subsidies for hydrogen projects. So that is why I believe that we should not only think about gas and sources which will replace the gas, like pipeline or LNG or whatever, but we should have a more wide view of the European energy system and of the European policy, including the decarbonization policy, including hydrogen, including biomethane, because as our experience proves that gas cannot be, and the situation with gas, with transit, and with the sources of energy cannot be separated from this wide picture.
Thank you very, very much. We have come to some matters legal or at least legislative by the end of the speech. But what you said before and how you finished the speech really adds to the breadth of our perception of the situation. So thank you very, very much. And now, Mr. Yevhen Natsin-Stepanov, First Deputy Chairman of the Board of the Association of Energy Suppliers.
Hello, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank Energy Club for invitation, for the possibility to stress our points of such important issues and to take part in such important discussion. And thank you also for our foreign guests and recent speakers that gave pretty widespread overlook of the situation in Europe in the matter of natural gas market and challenges and threats that they are facing. And from our point of view, the main challenges for Europe and for European natural gas market, as we see it, is first of all how to reduce consumption of natural gas in general, because we all understand that mostly the transit contract will end at 24 this year, and it will not be prolonged. So Europe must seek for solutions to to find how to solve their problems. And first is how to reduce consumption, and the second is where to find new alternative sources of resource, because according to EU Green Deal and to hold this decarbonization strategy, in nearest future, Europe is planning to fully phase out the using of coal for generating electricity. So in any case, in nearest future, Europe would need additional amounts of natural gas to change the coal in producing energy. So, and I think they are challenging it pretty well. Because they are finding new resources from Qatar, from LNG, from USA, from Africa, from Norway, of course. And also what we would like to add is that we, from Ukraine, from our point of view, we have also what to propose in terms of solutions. First of all, Ukraine has a great a gas storage system that has a total maximum capacity of 25 billion cubic meters that could be used by our European partners for storing their gas and for making additional saving resources of natural gas in case they need more amount of saved natural gas. Second is we could redesign our transportation system for use of biomethane and for use of hydrogen, but in long-term perspective. That is also would be interesting, I think, for our European partners. Also, Ukraine has a great export potential, and I think maybe not in full amount, but we could like made our contribution in terms of producing additional volumes of natural gas, and in short-term perspective, we could like see up to 1 billion or even 5 billion cubic meters of additional export resource for Europe, and in maybe a long-term perspective, we could see it about up to 10 billion additional cubic meters for like export possibility of Ukraine. So yeah, we understand the issues, we understand the challenges that Europe face, but Ukraine also have something to propose for our European partners to help them and to help them solve our like joint European problems in energy sector and especially natural gas sector. So yes, I think that would be all, and thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you for telling us a lot of things which are worthy of our attention. And of course, every participant has added their own point of view and their own details to this broad picture. But I think that there's a person with us who is well equipped to sum up at least preliminary results of our discussion. And this is Mr. Mykola Kolesnik, Deputy Minister of Energy of Ukraine. He was on this. Yes, he is with us.
Hi. Thank you once again for organizer. Thank you for our previous speakers, because it were really informative and interesting to have different thoughts today, and to, I don't know, to have a summary maybe for that all. I don't want to repeat the same statistic data regarding the natural gas balance all over the different markets in Europe, but there is a few bullets that I made it during this meeting, today's call, and summarizing maybe what were mentioned. So the first point that I would like to mention on behalf of the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine, that sanctions defined its weak point in the Russian aggression state budget. And this is LNG, Arctical LNG. Believe me or not, but it has really huge effect on Russian-based budget. Because previously, as Madame Aura Sabadur mentioned, there was a lot of companies which is very, that can be characterized as fake companies. We don't have strict criteria for them. Not all European markets has tight criteria for trading companies. And we have different examples all over the Europe. For example, in Ukraine, we also have very light requirements to receive the license for trading. But taking into account, for example, our Polish colleagues, they have very strict criteria, and only huge traders can income in the market. And at the same time, they have even criteria, high criteria for so-called gas resource that should be done by each trader to start to operate in some segments of market. For example, like gas for households. And we take all that, we try to include all that experience all over the Europe, of course, taking and planning our future market model. We do understand that PSO it's temporary measure, so we take a look on a future model having that lesson. The second point I would like to underline, it's that the Russian invasion teaches and provides joint, frankly, understanding between European countries and energy ministers that the price of unfair competitor, that the cost of unreliable partner is very high. All European countries, especially German, were defining and were, they were looking for special funds to solve this problem, this unfair competency. And why especially I'm telling about unfair competency? Let's take a look on one important thing which happened last 5 years. Previously, most volumes of Russian gas which were traded to European state or half-state based traders, they were always under risks of price manipulation. And it were a problem of Ukraine, it were a problem of Baltic countries, it were a problem of a lot even European countries, because at the same time, the hugest volumes were sold to European markets not by so-called independent exchange trading platforms, where in the latest year they had incorporated so-called Gazprom index, but it was really small, comparably small volumes. The biggest volumes were sold to so-called shipment companies, which were really they were very common to the fake companies. A few guys working and trading more than 15 billion cubic meter annually. That's something weird. And that was the biggest problem of all Europe, because they manipulated the real statistic data. They manipulated regarding the real prices, because they sold the volumes out of the real market index. And that incorporated so-called unfair competition between European consumers. And where the war started, that affected mostly the biggest companies, the biggest consumers, fertilizers, steel producer, that were playing the game with that type of so-called fake companies that were half owned by Gazprom, or it authorized finances or any other types of support. What were done were important steps which were done by European countries. Not previous speakers already mentioned about demand reduction, LNG infrastructure, but the most important point is that all countries start to make forecast of their natural gas balance. They started to do the forecast of fulfillment of their gas storages. And after that, after first stress analysis, they understood that market conditions is not enough to make traders to get enough gas and to inject enough gas before the heating season, during heating season. That's why there was implemented special regulation regarding the level that should be met before the heating season. We as the Ukraine do understand that our huge underground gas storages will be very efficient only in case if that will be a part of paradigm of so-called East European gas market. Very good mentioned by previous speaker, once again, Aura, that markets in Europe start to split, and that's what is mentioned in a lot of reports. What I mean, for example, all European traders were focused on TTF price, but now, for example, latest year, we have a different situation. For example, in Balkan countries, we have discount to the TTF price. And that's happened especially in Bulgaria mentioned. Why it happened? Not only because of cheat games, let's say, it's because of lack of so-called shipment. Yeah, okay, I'm finishing. It's because of lack of shipment capacity. And my one of the biggest point, and I would like everyone to support this position, that we need to start to talk about efficient transition, concurrent transition TCO infrastructure all over the Europe. What I mean, due to the rules of European Union and so-called certified TCO operator, all capacity should be sold in public auctions, annual, month, or day basis. But if you take a look all over the Europe, especially in Balkans, a lot entry exit point were sold on so-called B2B contracts, long-term contracts, non-public contracts. And now we have lack of capacity because of Gazprom booked these volumes of interest in some shipment routes without tenders, concurrent procedure, anything else. And that is bad situation. At the same time, we have a very important point. We will take a look on the price of Gazprom index. It became expensiver already in 2021, in the end of 2021, sometimes expensiver than LNG hub. LNG hub shows that for long-term lag perspective, they have very stable index of price. And it's not only about so-called Henry hub. It's also about GKX Asian markets. And we do understand that this is enormous. And sometimes now the price of LNG is cheaper than the price of shipment to the liquid markets. So our task, European task, is to define the right so-called shipment cycles from regasification to the liquid market to make all this volume that in the future will came to European market, whatever it came from pipe or LNG, it should be affordable for liquid markets hubs. The second point is to define where it hubs happening. The most biggest SPI showed that the biggest negative effect that in the biggest price that EU paid for this unreliable partnership was effect of this deindustrialization. More than 7% of total reduction of in a key segment like metal steel production, automotive. That is very negative effect for EU economy. Especially we can see it in a total of GDP of some biggest European countries. How to mitigate this effect? I'm finishing, sorry for long speech. So very important point that most European traders like BASF, like RWE, OMV, they defined right balance of their contract portfolio. Most of them trying to have percentage of contracts which is focused on natural gas produced internally in Europe or in Norway, in other countries, potentially, and I hope in Black Sea, especially in Ukraine side, but whatever. And the rest part of their contract basket consists of LNG and other routes of supply, Africa and whatever. It means that now the question of reliability and sustainability of contracts is very important. Most of this contract is very long-term, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, even longer. It means that they need to develop the infrastructure to receive the volumes because this is high cargo volumes. And they need to have rhythmic shipment to receive these volumes to the European markets. EU aggregate were mentioned today. It is a platform that helps middle-level traders to receive the volumes for their needs, for their consumers, for their portfolio. It became to evaluate positively. It's already include additional entry-exit points of supply to entry-exit point of regasification units. So it's evaluate positively, and we hope this platform for future will also include Ukrainian underground gas storages as one of potential hub to store and to make this guaranteed resource for European Union countries. And the last, as a deputy minister, I need to argue that this is one of the important points for us. Even today, the transit is very in a low level. Ukraine can ship and our infrastructure is built to ship more than 146 billion cubic meter. We can store up to 30 billion cubic meter. Recently, we used 15, so half of that is available for European traders. And fulfilling in this between the heating season period, injection period season, storing 15 billion cubic meter, frankly, most the same that we ship annually. So it means that we can find and relocate Russian gas on any other molecule. And the infrastructure which is already developed in plan to be developed in the end of 2027 all over the Europe show that the next year, the Europe will receive 227 billion cubic meter of LNG, and the rest, each year, they increase capacity. It means that the intention which made after negotiation by our ministry, of our minister, and European leaders, by Deputy Vice President Kadri Simpson, that EU can live without Russian gas, it's realistic. And it's based on realistic forecast and conclusion. And when Austrian energy minister, who's very strong in numbers, saying that they can do that, the next step, they telling the local institute to calculate financial risks and how much it costs. So from technical perspective of view, Ukraine is ready. We are a reliable partner. We are ready to help. And it's only question of price and, joint actions, which will help everyone, because these actions have regional effect. And we as Ukraine do believe that we already have our part, how our place in Eastern European hub. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kolesnik. And of course, it was worth listening to the deputy minister, to hear from him as a deputy minister, I must tell you. And this came in the last part of Mr. Kolesnik's speech. And I think that he's left us as soon as he finished, or am I not right? Well, anyway, oh no, he's with us. He also said that he suggests that everybody joins him in some of his ideas. So if you join him in his ideas, we pass this over. If someone wants to oppose or put something of what was said under closer scrutiny, I'm prepared to give you a word for some time. Yes. No one volunteers. Okay, then I think that yes. Ms. OS, again, a thumb up. Okay, so thank you very much all for participating. I think that the positions were clear cut if some of them were explained in longer terms than the others. But again, to think it all over requires probably some time. So with this, I thank you again for your participation and hope to see you during, Mr. Mizuet.
Can I summarize it this way? I think we as Europeans must prove that we can live happily without and develop successfully without Russian energy resources. And they cannot be fully human without European civilization. That's all.
Well, as they say, a lot of gas. And of course, when you started to say that we can live happily, I just wanted to put there ever after, but we're still not after. We, I think, are in the process and before some important things will happen. And those important things will not happen without the participation of people like you. I mean, all the participants in this event. Thank you very, very much. Take care and see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.